Whether you're a diehard sports fan, a hopeless romantic, or a comedy aficionado, the Xfinity 10G network was made for streaming it all. Worry less about buffering when streaming your favorite shows, movies, or live sports, and enjoy a better way to watch. Xfinity gives you a reliable connection for streaming, plus all the entertainment you love all in one place. Fear not, because now you can finally sit back, relax, and stream your favorite entertainment and sports like never before with the Xfinity 10G network.
First, the bad news. SAP Business AI won't help you generate cubist versions of your family's holiday photos. But it will help you understand which supplier is best to help you roll out your plant-based packaging in Southeast Asia, or identify the training your junior project manager needs to rise up the ranks, and automate repetitive tasks while you focus on big innovations, so you can be ready for the next opportunity. Revolutionary technology, real-world results. That's SAP Business AI.
Hello again, hockey fans. Are you ready to brave the wild? With me, your host, Paladino Joey. Brave the Wild is available on the sportstuff.com and on iTunes. I thank each and every one of you always for downloading and listening to the show. It's great to be back on the air finally. It's been almost 2 months, or is it about a month? No, it's been about 6 weeks or so. I hope all of you had a happy Halloween and happy Thanksgiving. I really apologize for the hiatus. It was not intended to be this way. I was hoping to get at least 2 more shows in that time span, at least, if not maybe 3 or 4 or 5, but just got really busy with the schedule and got way behind and was really limited on what I could record and when I could record. So I was kind of relegated to only Purple Mafia at the time because the games are so important and stuff. And I tend to always do this with this show, and I really apologize. But now we're getting back into the swing of things with Brave the Wild, and I have a really happy announcement that took place basically the night before Thanksgiving, which gave me something to be thankful for. Brave the Wild is on Stitcher. That's right, Brave the Wild is on Stitcher, and over the past couple of hours and couple of days and stuff, I've actually added some more sound bites and some songs and stuff. So, yep, and retro video game related. Like, this show has a lot of Mega Man in it, if you hadn't noticed. So, and then there's Blades of Steel, ice hockey, stuff like that. You're probably going to hear something like a new Mega Man song. Not modern new, but I mean new to this show, if you know what I mean, like retro classic. So you'll hear that during one of the segment breaks. Probably I'm going to put it in the first one. Yeah. Sorry if I'm sounding a little silly. We're going to try to play catch up a little bit. It's been kind of an up and down dramatic deal with the Minnesota Wild the past 6 weeks or so. And it's kind of very typical as well. It seems like it's the same script every year, doesn't it? It's not quite as awful yet, though. I mean, we're not giving up a ton of goals or anything, but it's always like somebody important or 2 or 3 people get hurt, and the team starts to play poorly after a awesome start. Like, wow, this team's ready to go on a run, man. They're one of the top teams in the league, and now we're starting to lose again, and it kind of sucks. And yeah, we're back doing that again. So yeah. We've been doing okay, but it was kind of similar to last year, even the early half of November. We still kept winning games, like shutting out Tampa Bay right now, and we beat Winnipeg, shutting out Tampa Bay on November 7th, and we beat Winnipeg 5-3 in a pretty exciting game November 10th, stuff like that. And then, I got to tell you, man, I if I was recording, and I wish I was, this is the whole point, I wish I was recording at the time that Saturday, November 14th took place. Because basically, yeah, we're going to try to catch up. I'm not going to review every game, but I wish I was recording the day of Saturday, November 14th, because I just knew somehow, some way, this was going to be an extremely pivotal game for the next couple weeks, maybe several weeks for the Minnesota Wild, because I'm telling you, they're on some kind of script or something every year. It's kind of goofy. It's kind of like every year in the weather, like the weather pattern, like June. The first 2 weeks of June are just spectacular, and the next 2 weeks of June are humid, and there's potential for severe weather, stuff like that. It's like every year it's the same thing. And the Wild, it's like every year it's the same thing. Like it's something like going to Dallas or going to Winnipeg or somebody like that. And you're not necessarily supposed to win, but you just hope and pray you come out of that one. And it's always some kind of, it's either a big fat blowout or a really emotional type of loss. And in this case, the Wild lost in overtime after forcing overtime on the road in Dallas, and they could not come out with a win. They lost right away in overtime. It was just right away after the Wild made a nice dramatic comeback. And I just somehow knew this was going to be some type of a snowball effect for the Wild, because after that they lost to Pittsburgh, they lost to Boston, Pittsburgh 4-3, Boston 4-3, and then the Wild win against Nashville 4-0. That was really awesome. And then just recently, very recently, lost to Vancouver the day before Thanksgiving, 3-2, no points, 0 points in a game against Vancouver. You got to get at least a point out of that, and I think you got to win that game at home. And then just today, Friday, November the 27th, Black Friday. Again, happy Thanksgiving to everybody, and happy Black Friday and Christmas season and all that. 3-1 loss to Winnipeg today. Just did not feel that this team was in the game really at all until the fourth line bailed them out. You had Porter and Ryan Carter teaming up. Ryan Carter's third goal of the season, Porter's second point of the season, only second assist, Jonas Bourdin's second assist, and third point of the season. Jonas Bourdin's point production way down this year. Chris Porter barely a factor, but at least we have a wonderful listener named Chris Porter as well from Idaho, who's been from Pittsburgh, and he likes the San Jose Sharks and everything. He lives in Idaho now. He's lived in a lot of different places. He likes the Indiana Pacers, the Pittsburgh Penguins, San Jose Sharks, teams like that. He's all over the place. I like Chris Porter, very cool guy. One of the most loyal and probably the oldest listener of Brave the Wild, unless there's some people out there that have never given their names, but they've been listening to the show for 5-6 years. Gosh, this show is like 7 years old already. So, yeah, I'm definitely the George Washington of Minnesota sports podcasting, aren't I, when you think about that? Finally got on Stitcher, though. It's about time. I don't know what the deal was a couple of years ago when we tried to get on, and then it just gave up, got mad, and forgot about it. And it's like, let's get it on there. What the hell? So, because I remember Stitcher didn't respond later on. It was kind of weird. Like, something wasn't clicking somewhere. But speaking of not clicking, the Wild were not clicking most of this game. Ultimately, great goaltending by the Winnipeg goalie, Hellebuck, very good goaltending by him. But then again, at the same time, he only faced 15 shots the whole freaking game. Dubnik had to face 29 shots by Winnipeg. It got really aggressive in that second period. Actually, it was you could just tell Winnipeg was going to win this game without some type of change. But then the fourth line came to rescue the Wild, and it took the fourth line in a situation like that, a physical game like this. The Wild and the Winnipeg Jets just going at it nonstop. Ultimately, the fourth line had to kind of bail him out, get him back in it. Sure, there's 11 minutes left in the game, but the Wild couldn't barely muster anything. The puck was in our zone pretty much the whole frickin' game, except for certain spurts in the third period and such, when the Wild were trying, as they might, to get something going. Could not get anything going. Extremely frustrating. Winnipeg Jets actually had their most shots on goal in the third period of all things, which just added to the frustration for all of us, as they ended up with 12 shots on goal, only 6 in the second. Very boring second period between the Wild and the Jets. Jets dominating early, 11-3 shots on goal. This is not good at all. And the Winnipeg Jets are only a 500 team with this victory. The Wild dropped down to 11-7-3. The Jets are 11-2. Think about how bad the Jets are playing, and then for them to roll into our house like that and just beat the crap out of us. And it was just unbelievably frustrating. So to talk about the injuries that have popped up, Fontaine has missed most of the freaking season. Parise had an MCL sprain back on November the 5th. Pardon me. He finally came back today. So basically, as long as I'm doing Brave the Wild, Parise's playing again. I wouldn't say he's healthy, but he's playing again. I'm sure he's still very sore, but nice to have him back out there. That's great. Fantastic, actually. I have no complaints whatsoever. But overall, the Wild themselves, I don't know. There's kind of a lot to complain about right now. They started really nice, but you think about certain players struggling the way they have. But there's also other players on the roster that have really, really exceeded what they've been doing the past couple of years. Dubnik in general, not as good as last year, but certainly has stepped up of late for the most part. Like, he had the 4 goal situations, though. He had multiple 4 goals against when it came to the Boston and Pittsburgh games just about 2 weeks ago now already. Wow, Devin Dubnyk kind of averaging out a bit from what he's been. Goals against average about 2.5, 3 shutouts on the year. So again, the Lightning, the Nashville Predators, and I'm blanking on the first one. I'll probably get back to that in a little bit. But you have certain guys playing way better. 3 guys, really, all 3 of them last year that were playing really poorly. Everybody was on them the whole season, and then look at them now. And you know what? I was on all 3 of them. I'm going to be completely fair. I am not going to be a hypocrite at all because I was on them big time. But one of them, who's probably been the most valuable player of the team so far this year for the most part, is Ryan Suter. 20 points in 20 games. Unbelievable. 3 goals, 17 assists. He's second among defensemen in scoring in the entire NHL. And what have we all been talking about? It isn't just Joey Awajan and Brave the Wild, or Paladino Joey, whatever you want to call me. It isn't just me, but everybody's been talking about bring his minutes down a little bit. Look at him now. He's a superstar again. I mean, he is a superstar. He's on pace for 82 points this year. That's freaking awesome. I mean, how can you not be excited about that? I mean, Suter's playing out of his mind. 39 blocks on the year, beating only behind Spurgeon, who's actually got 12 points in 20 games. He's the kind of guy, I mean, I don't know, they always bring him up in trade talks because he's a piece, he's a chip that you could possibly give up when you're trying to chase down a score, but I don't know. I mean, he better be a pretty damn good scorer because that'd be a pretty big loss. Spurgeon and Suter, just dominant forces for the Wild so far in the early sections of the season. Zucker, it took a while to get going, but now he's, ever since Zach Parise was out, he was basically like a kind of a sort of Parise replacement at that left wing on the top line, though I'm not sure which top line is the top line anymore. Is it Koivu, Zucker, and Niederreiter, or was it Granlund, Pominville, and Vanek, who's another player who's been downright fantastic this year? Thomas Vanek's been leading the team in scoring, or in goal scorers. He's got 9 goals on the season, 17 points total in 20 games. He's on pace for about 70-some points and like about 30, 40 goals. Just an awesome season for Thomas Vanek. I mean, very happy. He's the Thomas Vanek of the Buffalo Sabres again, the real Thomas Vanek, the one that we were all hoping he was going to be. I mean, boy, oh boy, really, really impressed with Thomas Vanek this year. He just looks like a different guy. Koivu's just been ridiculously good. Tons of assists. He doesn't score a whole lot, only 4 goals, but 20 points total, tied with Suter for the team lead. 16 assists on the season, making good plays, winning faceoffs, aggressive, tough. I really have been happy with Mikko Koivu this year, and I can finally say that. You just hope it's going to continue, because with Koivu, it always seemed like it's too good to be true. He'd have these awesome stretches, and then he'd just disappear like Casper the Friendly Ghost, which I'm sure people have used that saying about 1 million times. But this one's been sustained for a longer period of time, which has me feeling pretty good. So, well, one of the players that had been struggling for a long time until finally lighting the lamps and getting assists as well, Mikael Granlund, who was way down there for a while, like about 10th or so in the team in total points. Now he's miraculously 5th, all the way up to 12 points in 20 games. He's been picking up lighting the lamps again. He had a goal recently, finally got his 3rd goal of the season, got his 2nd goal of the season just not that long ago either, and he's been getting some assists, teaming up with Thomas Vanek a bit, and Pominville. Those are old teammates with Buffalo. Pominville, yeah, he's got 10 assists on the season, which is 3rd on the team, but 0 goals. And this is another topic that's been going on for pretty much the whole season, of course. I mean, of course it has. 0 goals for Jason Pominville? Are you kidding me? He's probably the 3rd or 4th highest paid player on the roster. Of course, you got Parise and Suter are super high paid. Koivu and Pominville are pretty close. And then you got Dubnyk, who's pretty high paid now as well. But Pominville's one of those top paid players, and 0 goals. And he not that long ago, what did he have? 32 goals for the Wild. Just 2 years ago, and he was downright fantastic that year. His second season with the Wild, his first full with the Wild at the time. Pardon me as I try not to cough myself to death. Sometimes my throat gets dry. Coyle's been kind of on and off, but he's been centering that 3rd line most of the year. It's the same story again when they want to put Coyle on the top line at right wing or the 2nd line at right wing, and someone gets hurt, like someone very important, like Mr. Parise, and then you got to reshuffle everything, and then Coyle's back at center. And in this case, he's been 3rd line center. third line has seen some good days and some bad days, and I don't even know who's on the third line anymore because it's been so confusing with the players' injuries and such. You've had Jordan Schrader there. You've had Chris Porter all the way up there. You've had Ryan Carter there, but mostly Carter has been on the fourth line with Halla and Porter generally. But then you have these other guys like Ballmer, who's played a couple games. He's been up here. Christoph Bersetchi, he's been up a few times. Gustav Olsson, he's a defenseman, of course. It's a mess, though. Justin Fontaine has missed a ton of time with injuries. He missed a couple games to start the season, came back, got injured again. He had 4 points in only 8 games, so that's not bad. But overall, just too many injuries. Scandella missed 5 games with injury. Parisi ultimately missed 8, which you'd think it'd be more than that. That's surprising. Only 8? So, I mean, the Wild's schedule a little bit quieter than you'd think. Matt Dumba, he started the season super strong, and the preseason was unbelievable, but now only 5 points in 20 games. He's been pretty quiet, and his defense has been up and down for the most part, but at least he hasn't been getting killed too bad all the time, but he certainly struggled off and on throughout the season. Tyler Graovac never has returned to the Wild's roster. He played 1 game, and he's been out ever since. Curtis Gabriel is a guy that's been on the fourth line at times as well. That adds to the confusion. Michael Karanen as well. Played only 1 game and was a -1 in that game, unfortunately for him. It's been a huge mess, ultimately, this whole roster, and it's kind of like, what can you do, ultimately? Vanek's been all the way down to the third line at times, just kind of up and down. The top line, or at least the most commonly scoring line, has been Koivu, Zucker, and Niederreiter. But even Niederreiter's numbers, after, again, a very strong start, he's still at only 6 goals, 3 assists, 9 points in 20 games. He's gotten real quiet. The Wild's offense started the season so strong, and now it's just sleepwalking. I mean, only 1 goal today, again by the fourth liners, and then you have other games where the 4-2 losses, 4-3. 3 is not too bad, but still, and you only muster 2 goals against Vancouver just the other day on Wednesday. Oh Lord, it's been a real tough ride this season, and it's unfortunate. I mean, considering how strong the Wild looked for as long as they looked, and then you're back to this again. And it's kind of like, what do you do? The good news is Dubnyk's not getting completely shelled, but still he's not having the best games ever, and the defense is not really helping Dubnyk so much either at the same time. I mean, the game the Wild beat Winnipeg, to give up 3 goals like that wasn't so hot. But really the month of Movember, as they all like to say, has not been friendly to the Wild generally. It usually starts good, and then it goes downhill, and it's doing it again outside of that wonderful Nashville game. So ultimately, where do we go from here? You hope up, but, well, the Wild will be hosting the Dallas Stars on Saturday. That's a chance right there. That's a chance to wrap up November with a very positive run. That's just tomorrow night, by the way. So that's why I figured do the show now after the Winnipeg game. Just, again, a snooze fest. October was so much stronger. Though I remember Dubnyk started pretty slowly and such. Like you could leave off from the Wild losing to Anaheim. I remember that very well. That was about when we left off. The Wild lost to Anaheim 4-1. Just can't beat that team. And then we came back and shut them out. That was the other shutout. And you give up 5 goals to Winnipeg at that time as well. So again, the Wild's defense not really been so hot. Outside of Suter, and Brodin is having another down season with only, again, like I said, 3 points offensively, and his defense not quite like last year. And of course, his rookie season, he looked like he was on his way to being like another Nicholas Lidstrom out there. But ever since the start of this season, Brodin, it just something's not right with him. It's disappointing, and that's about it. So let's wrap up this first segment. Again, kind of a generalized segment. It'll be more game by game-ish if I can keep up with this show more properly during the course of the season. I most likely will be able to. Again, I apologize that I lost track of things because of the tough work schedule. It's getting a little bit better. It's not perfect. It's still kind of weird, and it's unpredictable as well. So, but it's not going to be like it was during the lawn cleanup season in November. It's always really tough. So the MVP, we'll call it, the Mike Modano Award since the last show. It's usually like weekly, but we'll just do it since the last show. it's going to be, well, I'm going to have to give it to 3 people, which is kind of silly. I know it's too many, but it's a tie because they've really carried this team. Mikko Koivu, Ryan Suter, and Thomas Vanek. I mean, Thomas Vanek scoring goals, Suter and Koivu setting people up and setting a tone and leaving a great example for the other players. Thank God Parise's back, though. This should be a big help. Too bad it didn't help today at all, unfortunately. Just whatever. Just the Wild offense could not click at all. Biggest disappointment, we'll go with the James Shepherd Memorial. That's still intact, very much so. There's a lot of disappointments on this roster, but who is the top disappointment? I mean, is it just the injuries themselves? Is it Jonas Brodin? No. I mean, ultimately, I'm going to go with Matt Dumba right now. His defense is not that hot, and he's not producing offensively really at all of late. And it could have gone to Mikael Granlund, considering what he's supposed to be. Oh, and we'll give another one to Jason Pominville. No goals. I mean, how could he not get the James Shepherd Memorial? So it's going to be a combination between Pominville and Matt Dumba. It's just been a gigantic struggle for those 2 guys. So there you go. Not bad. Hopefully you enjoyed that segment. I had fun with it. I mean, and it kind of is what it is right now. Just getting caught up. Hopefully we can get more detailed here, and I'll do some predictions into next week and such in segment number 2, and then a very brief checkup on the Iowa Wild after that. We'll be back right after this.
You shop on Amazon? Did you know that you can support this podcast just by doing your normal shopping on Amazon? It's really easy to do. Just go to thesportstuff.com and click on one of the many Amazon pictures. Do your normal shopping, and Amazon sees that we referred you, and they give us a percentage. We'd like to thank you in advance for supporting thesportstuff.com, and please use our Amazon link. Now enjoy the rest of the show.
We are going round like Saturn
We are back here on Brave the Wild, segment number 2, preview segment. Let's get started on it as soon as possible here. We're going to bounce around the NHL standings as well. And really, I can jump into a topic right away here. Is the Wild host the Dallas Stars tomorrow, Saturday, November the 28th, to wrap up the month. Hopefully on a positive note, it's another home game. Got to protect home ice in this situation. You don't want to lose to Winnipeg and Dallas, 2 teams you need to beat to win this division or compete in this division. Minnesota Wild right now at this moment are resting in 5th place in the Central Division. Not that long ago, they were in 3rd place, which is very attainable still. The Wild trailed Nashville now from the 3rd place, which is a division leader's position, no longer a wild card. It wasn't a wild card position. Really nice to be there. The Wild trailed Nashville and Chicago, both with 28 points. Dallas is leading the division with 34. St. Louis with 31. And what did I predict coming into the season? For those of you out there that think I don't know anything about hockey, are you crazy? I've been watching it for over 20 years. I've been following it for over 20 years, and I know teams' patterns. I have a pretty good idea, and you see the way things are going. I predicted the Dallas Stars, unfortunately, would be the team on the rise in the Western Conference this year. They'd be the quote-unquote surprise team that would achieve expectations. They're achieving expectations right now, or they're overachieving with a 17-5 record, 34 points total. The Wild host them tomorrow, 9 points behind the Dallas Stars early in the season. Jamie Benn and co. leading the way. Kari Lehtinen still the goalie. It's pretty surprising that they're doing this well, but it's mostly because of the offense, not necessarily because of the goaltending. And you also have Patrick Sharp and such on this team as well. Extremely talented team. The Wild have only played them once this year, and they barely lost in Dallas. That was actually not a bad performance, considering. It just sucks that we ended up losing the hockey game. That's the crappy part. Lettinen has seen some injuries at times. We may see Antti Niemi in this one, possibly, but I doubt it. Jamie Benn with 32 points, 16 goals in the season. John Klingberg with 20 assists leading the way offensively for this team. Kari Lettinen is having a pretty strong season. In fact, you could say he's doing a little better than Devin Dubnyk. Goals against average a little better, save percentage a little bit better from Devin Dubnyk, about 2.4 goals, and save percentage 92%. Very strong overall. Tyler Seguin also 31 points, right behind Jamie Benn. Yeah, Klingberg with 24. Patrick Sharp, the former Chicago Blackhawk, with 18. The veteran Jason Spezza with 16 points. Overall, just an overall talented team. More top-heavy than anything, though. They're not super-duper deep. Johnny Oduya, though, a very good defenseman. Only 5 points, but again, very, very strong defenseman. They even had Alex Goligoski from the Pittsburgh Penguins not too long ago. Very talented overall team. Again, a great fear of mine. They made some nice decisions in the offseason. They got some veterans to go along with these young up-and-comers. A dangerous team, but I think they're still very beatable. And just because I say they're going to overachieve, they're going to have a strong season this year, doesn't mean the Wild has to finish behind them or anything, and it doesn't mean the Wild can't beat them in XL Energy Center. I'm going to predict the Wild win the game, believe it or not, despite their disappointing performance tonight. I think they come back and compete against this team, who they will be playing in that stadium deal later in the season. I like the new jerseys quite a bit, actually. You can check them out on the Brave the Wild page. Unfortunately, there were no comments there. It's been extremely quiet, and it's mostly because I've been inactive for the most part. I need to promote that page more and get more people to it. There have been a lot of likes, though, which is really cool. People have been joining that page. It's been coming up significantly the past month or two. And thank you. If you happen to be listening, thank you very much. The numbers for the show have not been bad at all either, to be quite honest. I really appreciate those of you that do listen and that have been telling your friends and having them come over to the Facebook page, because it seems like they're mutual friends and such, and that's really cool. Thank you. God bless you. Keep them coming. Really appreciate it. I really do. And those of you out there though too, before I continue this previous segment, please do give Brave the Wild a positive rating on iTunes. It deserves a better rating than that it's been getting, and it's there haven't been a lot of ratings lately. There were some trolls early on that really hurt the rating for this team, for this show, like years ago. And then there was one like about 2 years ago. I was like, what the hell? Or about 1 year ago. It was really a cheap shot too. So it makes it sound like it's a competitor of some sorts or something. I don't know. Just kind of a cheap thing to say. Pissed me off a little bit, but again, I guess we'll let that go. Kari Lettinen actually is on the injured reserve, so the Wild most likely will be facing Antti Niemi. Unfortunately, the Wild have plenty of players on the injured reserve themselves. Oh, man. It's no fun, is it? It really isn't fun at all. It's been kind of an ongoing thing. Yep, Scandella, injured reserve. He's been out for a while now. Parise's back. Fontaine and Grayovac sports hernia surgery. Sprained MCL for Mr. Fontaine. He's been out for quite a while because Parise also had an MCL injury, and he's back playing. But I suppose they're only about a week apart, so maybe it just depends how things are going with that. And plus, Parise's Parise. The Wild also have been struck with the flu of late as well, and Schrader has been day-to-day with that. That sucks. Other players on the roster faced it as well. I believe Fontaine, Scandella, and such. It's no fun. At least it isn't the mumps, I guess, but the flu is no joke. No joke at all, to be quite honest. So we'll try to keep moving here. I'm going to predict the Wild have a nice defensive showing, and they beat the Dallas Stars 3-2 in regulation. That's a fairly bold prediction. Not super bold though, but I think the Wild's defense will be better this time around. I think Mike Yeo will definitely get them ready to roll here, and I'm hoping for the best. Tuesday, December the 1st, the Wild head to Chicago. Very important game. I mean, all these games are super important because you have home games coming up later next week, too. The Wild need to get those. They need to get the wins in those. The Wild going to Chicago, though, if I'm going to pick a loss in this week, since I already picked the Dallas Stars game to be a victory for the Wild, 3-2 in regulation, I'm going to pick a loss in Chicago, Tuesday, December the 1st. You know, all this deal with Patrick Kane and that whole possible rape case. Now the son of a biscuit's leading the team, and they're leading the NHL in scoring. That's just great. Totally great. You know, that's great. He's leading the league in scoring. And yeah, it seemed like a trumped up bunko charge, as they like to say. That's basically It's a load of BS. They still have most of their players. Unfortunately, old Evil Otto, Brandon Stott is gone. Much as I hated him, I wanted to keep that bit going, and it's hard to keep it going when he's all the way over in Columbus and you only play them, once in a while. That's kind of a bummer. I like that Evil Otto bit. Maybe somebody else will take it away, but that arrogant grin that he always had on his face, it made me think of Evil Otto, the smiley face in Berserk, the old Atari game for arcades, and of course the Atari 2600 and such. Oh, Evil Otto, that's him. Blackhawks, we all know who they got: Duncan Keith, Patrick Kane, Jonathan Taves, this guy, that guy, Corey Crawford, Jarmelson, outstanding defenseman Brent Seabrook. My goodness, they're so good, and I hate saying it. I really do. They still have Shaw as well. They have Marion Hossa, all these big names. Kruger. He might as well be Freddy Krueger when it comes to the Wild because he's our worst nightmare, right? No, the Blackhawks are the Wild's worst nightmare. Ultimately, I think the Wild's worst nightmare is either Kane or Crawford. It's one of those two, even more than Taves. The old saying, too, with the Blackhawks is certain teams, they regular season for show and the Blackhawks playoffs for dough, basically. That's just kind of how the Blackhawks are. The regular season record doesn't even matter. That's why I said I thought they were going to maybe drop off of it this year, that they were going to come down a bit in the regular season. But when it's playoff time, who knows? I just made a bold prediction thinking the Wild were finally going to pass them this year because it would be about time. I mean, how many years in a row do you got to lose to the Blackhawks in the playoffs? I mean, it was 3 years in a row. The Wild do continue to develop and improve. You have a starting goalie, a legitimate starting goalie for the whole season this time. So why shouldn't the Wild earn home ice advantage over Chicago and ultimately, hopefully, take care of business this time around? It would be much and greatly appreciated. The last time these two teams played, it was kind of a mess. October 30th, right before Halloween, the Wild beat the Blackhawks 5-4 in a very exciting, epic battle. But I think the Wild will lose this one 4-3. Ultimately, I think the Blackhawks are just going to be too much, maybe even 4-2. Ultimately, I mean, the way the offense is going, I don't know, but at least you got Parise back, so one of the guys that's not really ready to compete at the NHL level will be sent back down. I got to think. I'm not even going to call him an inferior player because you never know if they're going to develop. Like one of them's better, but most of those guys are not doing so hot. When I get back to the Iowa Wild here, and I'm still debating if I should make it a third segment or just wrap up this segment with it. I think I'm going to wrap up this segment with it so I could later on have a third segment with fan interaction and Iowa Wild, but it's going to be more brief this time around, so we'll go that direction. I don't know. I just don't see the Wild winning in Chicago right now. They're not playing so hot. I'm kind of going on a limb picking the Dallas victory, like I've reiterated time and time again here. So then Thursday, December the 3rd, the Wild host the Toronto Maple Leafs, and if they don't win this game, boy, we're screwed. I mean, you got to win this game, and the Wild will win this game. The Maple Leafs are one of the worst teams in the NHL. Even though they've won seven games, it's not the worst ever. They're only 4 games behind the Wild when you look at the standings here. 7, 10, and 5 are the Toronto Maple Leafs. They have good goaltending, and that's about it for the most part. I mean, they've been an absolute mess for a while now. Dion Phaneuf is still there. He's not really been living up to the hype, obviously. You got Bernier and Reimer. Those are both pretty damn good goalies, to be honest. But, yeah, again, outside of that, they're a freaking mess. And I don't know what else to say about this team other than the Wild need to take care of business. I mean, they haven't been good. Well, then again, I shouldn't say that. They made the playoffs not that long ago, but outside of that, they've been bad forever. And then right when people got their hopes up and they thought this team was turning the corner and they were going to start competing, they started sucking again. So ultimately, their offense is pretty weak. Tyler Bozak is leading the team in scoring with 14 points. Morgan Riley with 13, Phaneuf with 12. Not much of an offense. The Wild need to take care of business in this one. James Reimer, though, is pretty damn good. To have a goals against average just above 2 and save percentage of 93, this is going to be a very low-scoring game. If the Wild do come out and scorch, this team would be pretty amazing, to be honest. But I'm going to go with I'll go with 3-1. I don't think Toronto's going to score more than 1 goal in this game. I mean, their leading goal scorers, they're not too bad. Local, 8 goals. That's not bad. But outside of that, I mean, you got 7, 6, stuff like that. I think the Wild win 3-1, and Dubnyk has a nice game. The Wild managed to score a couple goals against this Toronto team, despite James Reimer. I mean, I might go with the 2-1 game. This might be really... I'm going to go with 2-1. I think it's going to be really low scoring. Because the impressive stat here, when you think of James Reimer with what kind of a season he's been having with Toronto, is he has no shutouts, despite the fact his goals against average is just above 2. You have Devan Dubnyk with 3 shutouts on the season, and his goals against average is 2.5. So consistency is definitely James Reimer there, and he's got to be the best valuable player of that team. With all that said, Minnesota is going to overcome Toronto 2-1 in a very defensive-oriented game. You're going to see a lot of shots on goal from the Wild, but Reimer is going to be stopping quite a few of them. I think Dubnyk will be doing the same on the other side. It'll be probably like 30 or 29 shots for the Wild, 25, 28, and Toronto must be maybe 19. Hopefully the Wild do that, because if they end up getting scorched by Toronto, we're in big trouble. I don't think that'll happen, though. Colorado comes to St. Paul, Minnesota. The last place Colorado Avalanche, 8-13. Patrick Roy, I think, is in trouble. Saturday, December the 5th. The Wild do a home-and-home with Colorado, by the way, and I'll have to save the prediction for next week for the other home game against Colorado. This one, the Wild host it, and then the next one, the Blackhawks, the Colorado Avalanche hosted. The schedule makers seem to continue to do this with the Wild and the Colorado Avalanche. They do this every year. Avalanche with tons of injuries. You got Tanguay out with a knee injury, injured reserve. Winchester, concussion-like symptoms. That's a long time ago. Still on the injured reserve. Street is out with a injured reserve with his chest. Undisclosed injury for Stewart. Oh, that's funny. Day-to-day with Mitchell. Oblique injury. Talented players, veteran players, good goalie. A coach that, we thought he was good, but maybe not. Kind of a cheap shot artist group of players, though. Cody McLeod, Landeskog, guys like that. McKinnon's kind of a talented but cocky type of guy. Very good scorer. Eric Johnson's a guy we all love to hate because of the way he left the Gophers, and he's just been kind of a sniper against the Wild pretty much ever since he's been on St. Louis and Colorado, two of our most hated teams, to be quite honest. I can't stand the guy. I really can't. Nathan McKinnon is leading the Colorado Avalanche in scoring, ultimately. Matt Duchene is their other best player. You could say he's another real talented young guy. Not sure what's going on with this team, to be quite honest. And I remember Landeskog with a real cheap shot early on against Zach Parise and ended up costing the Avalanche, though, because it was a stupid hit. He hit him, but then he just let him. He just gave paved way for Parise to go score a goal. Pretty funny early on in the year. I think the Wild win this game, which is good news. I think the Wild take advantage and win both of these games, and if they don't, that would really suck. You got to take advantage of this Colorado Avalanche team, which is not playing very well, and the Wild do, for the most part, have their number. Varlamov is having an extremely disappointing season. 3.22 goals against average, save percentage under 90% at 89. Wow. Not good. Most likely the Wild will see Retro Berra, who's been a bit better, in fact a lot better. Numbers very complimentary to Devan Dubnyk, except slightly better, very slightly better. 2 shutouts on the season, goals against average about 2.4, save percentage about exactly the same. I think the Wild should take care of business against this Colorado team, despite all their cheap shot efforts and their arrogance and their silliness, though they have absolutely nothing to be arrogant about. They gave up 5 goals to the Ottawa Senators the other night. Yay. Isn't that just great? You gave up 5 goals to the Ottawa Senators. That's terrific. Keep them coming, Colorado. The Wild will win this game 3-2. It'll be a close game, aggressive, but the Wild will end up getting the job done. Hopefully Zach Parise scores a goal or 2 in this one. I wouldn't be surprised. Parise seems to have a pretty good number on Colorado. It would be nice. Maybe a old Nino Niederreiter pulls out the magic and gets it done. I think Dubnyk does what he does. Maybe you might even see Darcy Kemper in there one of these nights. Wouldn't be surprised, actually, to see Darcy Kemper maybe against Toronto. Possibly. Against an offensive like that, you might want to build up the kid's confidence. Might be a good idea. Maybe you want to give Dubnyk a break if he's a little tired. I would consider putting him in against the Toronto Maple Leafs. Colorado, maybe not. It's too much of a grudge match, even though their record is real bad. It's a grudge match, man. I mean, Colorado might come in and do something to us that night. You just never know. those are both games the Wild have got to win. They have got to win that. And I'm being extremely optimistic, picking the Wild to go 3-1 this week. But this is a good hockey team that's capable of getting that job done. And you know what? Quite frankly, they need to go out there and go 3-1 this week. This is the week to do it. You got to beat the Dallas Stars in Xcel Energy Center. And you'll get a pass losing to Chicago because it's not surprising on the road. But you got to beat Toronto and Colorado. You got to get it done. You gotta. And then you have the next week, you get a pretty big stretch there Monday and Friday. 2 games Monday and Friday, Colorado and Arizona. You got to win those games, even though they're on the road. Get them done. Lots of days off in between there, and then they play Saturday right away against San Jose. That just spells loss, right? That's just got loss written all over it. I hate to say, but that's way ahead of schedule. We'll talk about that when the time comes. Hopefully we'll be positive with my reviewing of these games coming up. So I guess I'm just going to wrap up the show in this segment. We're going to have a 2-segmenter this time around. So you won't be hearing ice hockey or Blades of Steel this time, unfortunately. You'll be hearing it though in the next time around. I'll probably go with that Bomb Man one after the first segment, and then I'll pick one of the two, Blades of Steel or ice hockey. Just like the ending always ends differently. You got either Gutsman or Elect Man ending this show. It's just more fun to be more dynamic, kind of my mood and such. So yeah, sorry if I'm sounding a little goofy. The Iowa Wild suck. And they're really dried up right now because it's a situation kind of like the stock market or such. It's just how it goes. The cupboards are loaded, and then all the players eventually move up or move on one way or the other. Like most of the players that were the best players on the Iowa Wild a little while ago are now on the Minnesota Wild, like the Granlunds and such, and others. Granlund, whatever. You get the idea. Wink, wink. Eric Halla, guys like that are important members of that club. They're up to the Minnesota Wild now, and other players maybe they were busts and they were okay on the AHL, but they were busts in the NHL, and they ultimately moved on elsewhere via trade or free agency. But the Iowa Wild right now, again, the cupboards are bare. The good news is there should be a new wave coming in next year. A good number of guys like Alex Tuck and such, the guys, the college kids that the Wild drafted. That's partially why the Iowa Wild suck so bad right now, is because a lot of their top prospects are college kids. So the college kids, well, when they're busy in college, they can't be in the AHL. So that's unfortunate. They do have an important prospect from college in the AHL. His name is Mike Riley, of course. But ultimately, the Iowa Wild are 3-15 to start off the season. That's pretty atrocious, to be quite honest. Michael Karanen is leading the way, but he's more of a veteran type of guy. Not an old veteran, but certainly not a young prospect type of guy, unfortunately, for all of us. Mike Riley, who of course didn't make the NHL roster starting off the season, he's doing all right at the minor league level. Ultimately, only 7 points in 21 games. He is a defenseman though, but the plus-minus of minus 24 for Mike Riley, not a good sign. But at the same time, when nobody's scoring for your team, I mean, it's kind of like a situation you're always trailing. There's always a big point differential. And plus, like the other situation going on as well, when you consider the Wild with their number of injuries, some of the best players on the Iowa Wild are also up. So it's just a huge avalanche or snowball effect or whatever the word is, domino effect, pardon me, for the Iowa Wild that's taking place right now. I mean, there is just nothing going on. And you have a guy like Brett Ballmer. I just cannot get over it. Only 2 points in 15 games. That's pathetic. Just pathetic. I thought he was better than that. Brett Suter, only 4 points in 21 games. And I know it has to do with maybe other players being around, helping you be able to score. Jordan Schrader had 5 points in only 8 games. So he was a valuable minor league player down there, but I'm sure he'd rather be up in the NHL level. It's not a good team, though. I mean, there's just nothing going on right now with a lot of these guys. Gustav Olofsson is a name, and he's developing, but he can only do so much right now, and there's nobody in front of him to score. It's not a good situation for the Iowa Wild right now. It's a huge domino effect right now with the organization, most of the better prospects in college or overseas still at this point, and of course the multiple injuries to the Wild roster and some of the top guys having to fill in. Like I just said, I'm probably just repeating myself, and I apologize, but that pretty much explains the situation right now with the Iowa Wild. It's just it's the perfect storm. There you go. That pretty much could wrap up this episode. It's yeah, you just hope this isn't some kind of script, and the Wild can break that script by beating the Dallas Stars and taking care of business this week and going 3-1. Huge opportunity for the Wild to do that. This is the time for them to prove that they can break that script, and we're not stuck in like a 3-year, 4-year cycle, 5-year cycle, the same old thing. And then next thing you know, Mike Yeo is cursing out the players, asking them if they're not ready to bleep in practice, and you don't think we need to bleep in practice after a loss, stuff like that. Yeah, we don't need to go back to that again. Let's get out there and compete, and let's be serious here. Let's get the job done. At least Parise's back. That's a big help. And other players will return as well. Scandella being out is not helpful. I know, but it is what it is. Most of the other important players are around, and guys that were not playing well last year are playing fantastic, which is great to see. Keep it up, Koivu, Suter, and Vanek. You are really, really helping this team right now. Thank you again so much. Thank all of you very, very, very much for listening. Again, now this show is available on Stitcher along with iTunes, so maybe some of you out there don't have iTunes because you have an Android device. Stitcher, I mean, there was always Double Twist as well, but there's Stitcher too. And there you go. Look that up. Get us on there. Give Brave the Wild a positive rating on iTunes, and if you can, also even give us a positive rating on Stitcher as well. It attracts new potential listeners, and it just gives me, it just makes me feel like I'm doing a good job when I hear positive reviews once in a while, right? rather than a couple of trolls here and there, and then some positive, and then a whole lot of nothing. This show deserves some positive ratings, so really would appreciate it very much. Want to thank you. I really want to tell you how much I enjoy and love doing this show, and how sad I was that I wasn't able to do it for as long as I was. Just a huge thrill to be back. Get them done. Get her done this week, Wild. And again, welcome to those of you new listeners out there. Thank you so very much for joining the Facebook page. And for those of you that want to know how to get there, of course, it should be in the description with iTunes, but I'll say it right here as well. Click in the search bar of Facebook. Go on Facebook. Go in the search bar. Type in Brave the Wild Minnesota Wild Show. It should probably pop up fairly quick. Click if there's a group and a page, make sure you go to the one that's a page, not the group, because I got rid of the group a long time ago, but the group might still be kind of like hanging out there somewhere. Go to that. Click the big like button on the top of the page, or the top area region or so of the page. Click like, join the page, like many others have been doing lately. And then please do comment, get involved with the show. And on Twitter, really fun interacting with people on there during games and such. At Brave the Wild, of course, all one word. Really appreciate your listenership. And there is a phone line. You are free to call in. It is via Skype. It is 209-736-7877, 209-736-7877. And when I say it's via Skype, that means, well, obviously you can call it from your cell phone with the 209-736 deal. But for those of you that might be overseas or something, there's multiple ways to continue to reach me via audio submission. Is, of course, on Skype, look up TSS. You can call that, and it's the same exact line. Or you can feel free to use an audio submission in this day and age of cell phones. Every single cell phone out there has a voice recorder on it, or sound recorder, whatever it is. It should say it. You'll see it right away. Just send it in. I can edit out maybe parts you want to be edited out, like the noise when the phone is answering or hanging up, all that kind of stuff. I can clean that up if you like. I mean, it's not even necessary. I'm not that worried about that. But yeah, you can email it to paladinolive@yahoo.com, paladinolive@yahoo.com, and that'll also be in the show description. All the above there. Thank you again so very much for your listenership, and we'll be back next week with hopefully a 3-1 dealie going for the Wild this coming week, and let's right the ship and get back to work. Minnesota Wild. Go Wild. We'll be back next week.